Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini, and I am not going back and forth between two different jobs before the biggest game of my career.
I'm gonna start calling you Charlie Weiss the third, Chris. I am David Ubben, and I am no longer in a mobile podcasting studio. Shout out to noted listener. I think it's Tony Pot of Coffee, which is an incredible last name. I'm not sure it's real. If it is, shout out to the Italians because that's an incredible last name. I assume that was an Ellis Island situation, but he tweeted us some pictures of some small SUVs and said, I found some sporty mobile podcasting studios. And I don't know how he spotted, but that's basically what we have. So shout out to Tony. That was very funny. That made me laugh a lot. Sorry about the Wi-Fi issues. We're back in the home studio today.
Yes, David had to record the last episode in a car outside of a family house.
At 1 a.m. Not weird at all.
Because of not wanting to wake up everybody in the house as he was doing a delayed Christmas. My wife
voice
and I
carries, as they say. I've been told this many times.
Yes, it comes up when I try to edit the show, and the levels are tough. My wife and I actually just got a new mobile podcast studio at the end of the year. So happy Honda days to
there you go
to everybody. We got a big show. We're going to go deep on every semifinal game, all two of them. We only got 3 FBS college football games left, folks. We're also going to talk about playoff buys and whether they matter. Some of the biggest portal moves that have happened so far. And if we have time, answer a few mailbag questions. But David, even before we hit record, we were trying to figure out, are we going to be available to go live after the games on Thursday and Friday? You are covering the Peach Bowl. You did not realize it was Friday.
I did not. I know the number of the day, but the day of the week, like the combination of Christmas and New Year's. And like I said, we had some family get sick around Christmas, so we delayed our Christmas. So whatever hope I have of connecting the day of the week to the number is still in a rough spot. I did remember today's trash day, so we got to get that done. But yeah, these things creep up on us. But I will be at the Peach Bowl. You're not doing a semi, Chris, but I did do a quarterfinal, so I will be down in Atlanta with our colleague Grace Rayner. Should be fun. I'm excited about it. Yeah. It's that time of year, man.
It's a quick turnaround. As I was putting the preview together for the Athletic, I was like, oh, wait a minute. During the quarterfinal, wait, we got games in a week. We're not waiting 2 weeks, week and a half, that type of stuff, because college football playoff didn't want to put the semifinals head to head with the NFL. The NFL they're in playoff mode, I believe, next weekend, right? Next weekend is wild card weekend. So that's why the college football semifinals are Thursday and Friday. And it's also why if the NFL was to go to 18 games, it could potentially open up the door to move those games back to Saturday. So the schedule is very weird. It's a quick turnaround. As of recording, Ole Miss doesn't even know which coaches are going to be available for the game. So we'll get into that. And we decided we are going to go live Thursday night after the Fiesta Bowl, both of us here on the Bunch Formation YouTube channel and Twitter. That will go then in your podcast feed Friday morning. Then Friday night at the Peach Bowl, David can't join, so it'll be just me. So everybody come on, please join us on the YouTube channel or on Twitter. Bring your questions. We'll talk about the Peach Bowl and who wins the is that the Indiana? Which
Indiana and Oregon.
You're the Indiana-Oregon game. Yeah. Okay. So we'll have 2 episodes later this week live, Thursday night, Friday night. Then they'll be in your feeds the next day morning. As for this episode, if you want to jump ahead, check out the show notes. We got timestamps in there. Send all your feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com, and we're Bunch Formation.
I will say, Chris,
yeah.
After the Peach Bowl, so this is a little bit of inside baseball for media, but in these CFP games, the locker rooms are open. So most
sort
of the time,
depends where you're at. It's not the locker room. In the Cotton, the locker room is not open, but they have a breakout room where they put all the players.
Well, locker room's open in the Peach Bowl. So we may get stuck waiting outside because there's a cool off period. But if I can pop in on my phone for like 5 minutes, if I get stuck out there, I might say hello briefly. But generally, I try to keep my eyes and ears open outside the locker room. But it's always awkward, going back to the BCS era. The players are just not ready for it ever. I don't think they ever get the out that like reporters are coming in the locker room. So players will be like getting dressed, which most locker rooms all season long are closed off. And then all of a sudden, like cameras and recorders and reporters just bust in there. And I would say 95% of the time, every single player is like, whoa, what's going on? So that's always an awkward experience because they're just not used to it at all. So
it's getting them
shout out to the BCS, now the New Year's Six, now the CFP for keeping that alive because it is very helpful and being able to grab people and have breakouts instead of just like people, a coach and two players on the podium like it is at a lot of these games. So I really appreciate it. You can do really good work, and depending on how the game goes, like you can get really, really good insights. The other trick of this job, offensive linemen are almost universally the best quotes, usually.
Yes, but it's also the place so this quarterfinals do full media days. The semifinals in the first round do not. And they have to make like the whole two deep and the coaching staff's available. So there's a lot of coaches also who maybe didn't talk to the media all year who you can get to. And that allows us to get more insight, to bring information to readers and listeners a lot more. So yeah, if David's waiting around, maybe he'll pop on the live stream, but otherwise Friday night.
We'll play it by ear. You never really know how it's going to go. And maybe there'll be a brawl in the tunnel that I'll write about. So we'll see.
We'll see. Please leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening there. We read them all on the show. And we got a few more here, so appreciate that. First one from John Hop 25. I love how you guys talk about the whole sport and not just the CFP. Sorry, that's what this episode's going to be. I'm glad I stumbled on your show. It's become my top sports show, and thanks for keeping me entertained as I'm spending the holidays climbing mountains in Chile. That sounds fun.
We run into some interesting people. Chris, so I did a speaking engagement a couple years ago. I think I told you about this.
Yeah, you have.
At this thing, and this guy, I was sitting at a table for this. It was like seated dinners every night. It was this weekend thing. And these people were telling me about heli skiing because it was like an investment firm that wanted me to come talk about NIL. And they were just talking about how like he didn't really like heli skiing because it was, it was kind of, it wasn't as good as just regular skiing. And I was like, man, talk about relatable problems,
Yeah.
Who among us has not gone heli skiing and been like, I would just really like it if it was a little easier to get to the top and I didn't need a helicopter to get to the top of the mountain. So, shout out to that. That's probably the same guy. I have not spent a holiday climbing mountains in Chile, I got to say.
That sounds fun, though. So thanks for listening there. I listened to some podcasts when I was in Italy in the summer, and I let them know. I was like, hey, I listened to it out here. So I've been there. Other review, Tom D. Johnson, huge fan of the pod. I've been listening for a while now. I'm really happy you guys are keeping it going. It's absolutely my go-to college football podcast. I'm a longtime Utah fan. Curious to hear your take on the Whittingham, Michigan situation. Michigan got a great coach. We're definitely going to miss him. Feeling optimistic about Morgan Scalley, though. Hoping we can at least keep some of our offense. Interested to hear your thoughts. Merry Christmas. So the reviews don't come in until a few days later. They don't show up. So we have talked about Whittingham an episode or two ago, if you want to go back for a deeper thought. But in the time since then, he has officially brought offensive coordinator Jason Beck with him. He has brought Jay Hill, the BYU defensive coordinator, with him. And portal is a little bit weird for Michigan right now. I think it is for everybody. But in terms of the staff that Kyle Whittingham is putting together, I think Michigan fans are loving this. That's probably not good for Tom here, but in terms of for Utah, we got to see kind of who they backfill and stuff like that. But hey, you got a big bowl win over Nebraska, so a good start at least.
Who would have thought the Sharon Moore situation, though, Chris, hurt BYU and Utah the most of anyone in college football? Because Michigan, y'all upgraded. I think that's pretty clear. We had a lot of questions about Sharon Moore, but combination of Kyle Whittingham, sounds like he's pretty motivated, really good staff. We'll see what they do at quarterback. That'll be interesting as the portal opens, and we'll talk about some of those guys later. But yeah, I don't know how you don't feel better about Michigan football on the other side of this Sharon Moore issue.
Yeah. As for Utah, still kind of TBD. I know when your elite pass rusher went in the portal, but we got to kind of see how the rest of it, I think, shakes out. So yeah, please leave reviews. We will read them on the show. And yes, we're going to keep this pod going into the off season. We're still figuring out the cadence, but we got a bunch of ideas we want to try out.
We'll be here.
And we're looking forward to that. But first, David, we are now into 2026. And that means people are making New Year's resolutions to exercise more. That's what I did last year. Get more involved in their communities. And if you're a trainer, a coach, or someone who organizes a running club even, you need to use Poney. Poney, that's Poney, a new social scheduling app that makes getting your groups together so much easier. They are the newest and exclusive in-show sponsor of Bunch Formation, and we're a big fan of what they do.
We are. My family is. My sister's already been messing around with it, using it for family gatherings. I'm about to, after the season, I'm going to go back to Arkansas. We'll spend some time with family. I'm sure we'll have to use Poney for that to make sure the whole family gets to see us. But there are 10 million organizers currently in the United States alone, and no other app combines advanced scheduling tools with payment collection like Poney does. If you're an organizer, you got to juggle texts, Venmos, calendar apps, spreadsheets, but Poney puts that all together in one easy app.
And this month, January, Poney is releasing its Pro Group Organizer feature, allowing you to collect payments from clients directly before they book. They're also releasing a private beta version soon where you can sign up.
And whether it's family or business, everybody's dealt with last-minute cancellations. And if you're an organizer, that means you can lose 20 to 30% of your revenue. You don't want that. But Poney has automated wait lists. So if someone drops out, it automatically adds, and the next person that's available, you can shoot them a message to confirm. All that happens automatically. Trainers spend 10 hours a week on administrative work instead of teaching. Poney can eliminate that last-minute scrambling and automatically keep an event at capacity.
Yes, and your clients don't have to download the app. You just send them the link with the info, and Poney does the work for you. It's frictionless infrastructure. With Poney, there are no problems. So download Poney today and make organizing effortless. That's Poney, Poney. Real plans with real friends and real clients made easy. Download Poney in the App Store or at letspony.com today. Now, David, before we get into the news, since we're not going to be recording till later in the week, we're going to start here with the game previews in the semifinals. We'll get into transfer portal and stuff later because some of that news might become out of date if you're listening to this later in the week. So to do that, we go into the game previews.
This is for all the Tostitos.
And this one is actually finally for all the Verbo Tostitos, at least. On Thursday night, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, number 6 seed Ole Miss against number 10 seed Miami. The game is 7:30 Eastern, ESPN. Miami's a 3.5-point favorite. David, what is Verbo?
So I've used Verbo. Well, I don't know if I've actually used Verbo, but I do know this one. It's basically just Airbnb, Marriott homes and villas. It's very simple. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My family has used that before. So interesting matchup here. Two teams that nobody really thought we're going to get here. Like we thought they could, but these teams had to beat Georgia and Ohio State to get here. Miami beat Ohio State in the quarterfinal. Ole Miss beat Georgia. And both, like the final 4 teams in this playoff, they're all interesting stories in their own way. And I guess if we start with Ole Miss here, as of recording on Sunday afternoon, we don't fully know how many offensive coaches will still be there. Because now that we're in portal season, some of those Ole Miss coaches who are following Lane Kiffin to LSU are spending their time at LSU because you got to host visits and do all kinds of other stuff. We know offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. will be back. Running backs coach Kevin Smith said he will be back. But as of recording, we don't know if there's any more. And they play a game in less than a week. And that's something I can't stop thinking about. It's like, okay, whether or not you have the coach for the game is one thing, but you are spending the week preparing for a team in the ACC who you've not played before. And you probably don't have many, if any, crossover opponents. That takes a lot of scout work. And you have scout teams and all these other, staffers that put this stuff together. But how much of a factor do you think that could be here?
I mean, it could be huge. I just can't imagine. Like, I feel bad for the kids because this is a situation. I don't think we've ever had this situation in sports. For one, because most of the time, even in college sports, the calendar makes sense. The calendar obviously doesn't make sense. We're doing free agency and the coaching carousel while the postseason's going on. You're seeing that play out right now. And that's part of why the coaching carousel is complicated. It's one thing if Bo Pribula goes in the portal and leaves his team before the playoff, your backup quarterback at Penn State last year. It's another thing if these staffers are having to juggle both sides of this. And I'm sure you feel conflicted, well, if it's like, well, where do you spend your time? You have some loyalty to the people that are presumably paying your salary that you just signed a contract with, but you got the kids back at Ole Miss. It's a very messy situation. Lane Kiffin, unconflicted at the moment, mostly just counting up his bonuses that Ole Miss keeps winning him. We're up to $500,000 after win. By the way, not cumulative. It goes like if they win, then it goes up to 7,000 or 750,000. If they win the championship, they win Lane Kiffin $1 million, which is still wild.
But it's LSU. It's LSU paying.
LSU is paying that, which is very funny to me. So anyway, it is a complicated situation, and
here's a question.
I mostly feel bad for the kids. Like the coaches are in a tough spot, but that is kind of what you signed up for. But the kids, it just feels really unfair to them. That like, hey, if I have some questions about what we're doing in the game plan and I try to call my position coach, well, my position coach, I mean, they might be in Baton Rouge. It's very unclear what the coaches are actually doing this week. So the idea that you're preparing for the biggest game of your life and you're not sure if your coach is down the hall, he might be hosting recruits in Baton Rouge, or he might be on the phone, talking about evals or whatever. You might not be able to get a hold of him for 2-3 hours. That just feels really unfair to the kids. And so I think that it has to be a pretty big issue coming into this week. Whether or not it plays out in the field, we'll see.
And can you imagine if Lane Kiffin was coaching this team? He wanted to coach the team through the playoff. Well, this is one of the scenarios why you don't want him to. Because what if he coached Ole Miss to a semifinal and now suddenly he has to do recruiting and portaling at LSU? That's a problem. That's why that's part of the reason they didn't want him doing it. So I think ultimately Ole Miss is again kind of vindicated in that decision. As for this game, I'm looking for a couple of things. First off, also we'll go to Miami. By the way, Miami not losing any coaches or anything. They are here. They're the 10 seed. They're the first double-digit seed to get this far in the playoff. And they have won the most recent national championship among these four. It was 24 years
2002.
But, no, 2000. Well, 2001 season they won it.
That always gets complicated, but yes.
I think, and we don't have Carson Beck versus Georgia, which is something I think a lot of us had pre-written after Miami had beaten Ohio State. But you got two teams who come into this, I think, both feel very good about the teams that they have. And in terms of what I'm looking for, I start off, can Miami win the line of scrimmage? And I mean this on both sides, because they did for the most part against Ohio State. Miami has 12 sacks in 2 playoff games already. Ruben Bain and Mesidor on that line have been dominant. Ole Miss, meanwhile, 18th in fewest sacks allowed per game. And we saw Trinidad Chambliss in the second half there against Georgia on the move, making plays. And similarly, this Ole Miss defense, which has not been good for much of the season, they have held Georgia and Tulane both to just 3.4 yards per carry. That includes sacks. But Ole Miss has been pretty good up front the last couple of weeks. And what will that Miami front be able to do? I think that's going to be fascinating.
I mean, do you think there's any chance Miami doesn't win the line of scrimmage here? That it's surprising to me that that's kind of a question for you. What that means for the game, I think it complicates your play calling a little bit. But I think when you see with Trinidad Chambliss is a new level of confidence. Some of the plays that he was making, he just seemed to play really, really free against Georgia and felt like he could do anything. And he didn't make a lot of throws where you're just like, what are you doing? It was just really composed. I mean, that deep ball over the top on that final drive, I think he spun out of some pressure there as well. I mean, that's a throw that's going to live in Ole Miss lore for a very long time.
He just threw that one. He just threw that one up because he saw he had single coverage right away. The ones where he rolled out were a couple of drives before that. But it's the thing is though, like Georgia's not a team that got a lot of TFLs this year. They were not putting offenses behind the chains. And we saw Miami, not only did they get 5 sacks against Ohio State, they were drive-ending sacks. They lost 42 yards in sacks. You're averaging like 8-9 yards a loss on a sack. And that's something that can completely blow up a drive. And with the way Miami was able to control the clock, it limited the amount of possessions Ohio State had. And so can they get to Chambliss, but can you make sure you don't like kind of overrun him, break contain, and then he can get out and run? Because that was not something Julian Sand was going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what I look at on that side. The other side, though, Miami was always ahead of the chains against Ohio State. They were picking up 3-4 yards of play. Like Carson Beck only averaged like 4 or 5 yards of completion, but there weren't like negative plays that were blowing up drives. They converted, I think, 7 or 8 third downs into first downs because they were third and manageables. And so can Ole Miss stop that? Can they make it a 2nd and 10 instead of a 2nd and 6? And in terms of what Miami's offense is going to do. So I think that is one of my my biggest questions there. Also, can Ole Miss, along those lines, can Ole Miss protect enough to get explosive plays? Because that's what Ole Miss is very good at. They're 4th in the country in plays of 20-plus yards. We saw Trinidad Chambliss hit a number of deep balls in that game. Miami doesn't allow big plays. They're a team that just does not allow you to really go over the top that much, partially because the defensive line gets there. Like, do you think Trinidad Chambliss is going to be running for his life in this one?
At moments, he will. I mean, I think part of this with that, I think Ole Miss can test them in ways that not a lot of teams have tested them because, you look at them, I'd be curious to see who the most explosive offenses that they have played were because you look down at who they've played. A&M, not really, but even A&M, was able to get some plays downfield at moments
late in that game.
Yeah. But you look at the rest. I mean, Notre Dame, not a particularly explosive team in the passing game, at least. USF, there's an athletic advantage, so it's a little bit different.
Yes, USF.
Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt. I think they can test them in a way downfield that they haven't been tested a ton this year. Because the ACC was so down. It was what it was. And so I think you're right. You've got to protect to be able to do that. But I think they're going to have some opportunities there with their receivers. This is probably, I have to look. I mean, other than A&M, I think A&M's receivers are probably better than Ole Miss. But this is probably the best group of receivers that they are going to play outside of, obviously, Ohio State, and A&M. So that'll be interesting to see.
And Miami let Jeremiah Smith, not led, but Jeremiah Smith got his. He had like 7 catches for 150 something yards or something like that against Miami. So like it was there at times. And you saw, I am also going to, I'm very interested if Ole Miss is going to go like tempo here because Ole Miss averages 75 plays per game offensively, one of the most in the country. Miami's defense only averages 62 snaps per game. And you saw late in the first half when Ohio State was going tempo, they pulled Bain and Mesidor and pulled some guys in that line to kind of get them some breathers. I'm curious if Ole Miss comes out really fast and tries to tire out that Miami front because they don't have the depth maybe some other top teams do.
Well, you're going to have to do something to minimum because I don't think they're going to be able to block those guys. Nobody's been able to block them. I don't know why Ole Miss would be the first to be able to do that. And so you have to do some things to minimize that. What that is, tempo can do it. Screens can do it. Can you just run it down their throat a little bit? Basically, if you're just letting those guys tee off on you like it's 3rd and 12 every play, you're going to be in trouble. So, there's a number of ways to do that, but they've got to be able to make it difficult on those guys, make them think they can't play C-ball, get ball, because if that happens, you are in trouble against the Miami front.
And Ohio State figured some stuff out. Like end of the first half and through that third quarter, they were going a little bit faster. They were finding some stuff and kind of neutralizing that pass rush a bit up until late in the fourth quarter. What are you most interested in this matchup?
I mean, I think it is that matchup because Miami, they do kind of live off of the pass rush. And offensively, they're good. A healthy Mark Fletcher has really obviously upgraded their offense. Their offense has played about as good as we've seen it since the start of the season.
Yep.
Since he's been able to be in there, he is a tough guy to bring down. The running game has obviously we've seen it improve quite a bit since he's been able to be back. But ultimately, if it's really hard for you to protect, it's going to be tough here. And Chambliss being a little bit more mobile, I think, can help that. In a way that Julian Sain was not, and being able to escape some sacks, extend plays. When you start extending plays, you can spin out of a sack. That makes life really hard on the secondary. And Chambliss and these receivers seem to be really, really adept at running scramble drill against Georgia. Chambliss making plays on the run, making plays downfield. Some of their biggest plays of the day came on broken plays. And so can you create out of that? Can you neutralize that front? In the ways that we talked about, whether that's play calling, whether that's Chambliss being a good athlete, whether that's establishing the run game and being able to hit on some play action, figure out what you want to do. But I think, to me, that will decide the game, because if Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor are just wrecking shop all game, this is going to be an ugly outcome for Ole Miss.
On the other side, Carson Beck, he's quietly been really, really solid. Pretty much since the SMU game. He has one interception, completing I think 75% of his passes, 8.7 yards per attempt as a team. Now, he didn't have put up big numbers in these two playoff games, but he didn't need to. One, at A&M, it was incredibly windy. That was going to be a very difficult spot for anybody to throw the ball in. But against Ohio State, he threw for 7 first downs. He ran for another. I'm very curious if that Carson Beck run aspect happens more in this game, because we saw Gunnar Stockton get free a couple of times against Ole Miss. He ran for 2 touchdowns. Can Carson Beck give them that? Or will, because he did it so much against Ohio State, is Ole Miss going to be more prepared for that? Because it was that play where Ohio State put Arvell Reese and QB spy on Carson Beck to get him down on one of those third downs. So, and then can Mark Fletcher move the pile forward? That's where, again, I get back to Miami was not getting hit with a lot of TFLs and falling behind. They were finding themselves in 3rd and 4s a lot. And that's what you're going to want to be able to keep doing. Kicking could be interesting in this game, by the way, because obviously Ole Miss's kicker, Lucas Carnero, made 3 huge kicks in that Sugar Bowl, 2 beyond 55 plus, the 2 longest kicks in Sugar Bowl history. And Miami's kicking has been it's been pretty good on the year. The Texas A&M game was kind of weird because, again, how windy it was. But if this becomes a bit of a lower scoring game, and if your drives are ending not in the red zone, but they're ending at the 30, at the 35, Ole Miss has a guy who can put points up there, and he's doing it in a dome. Once again.
I think ultimately, Chris, as we kind of look at the pick for this game, underdogs have done very poorly in this round historically.
Yeah.
This is when we've gotten to the 4-team playoff. I think it's a little bit different because teams have won their way here versus some Oklahoma teams that didn't acquit themselves well here. Michigan State, Washington, Cincinnati, some games in the past that were not the most competitive. So I don't think you're talking about a game here that looks like those necessarily. But I do think that, to me, Miami clearly a better team here. I think the coaching thing is a real issue. I just can't imagine having to split time before your biggest game and prep on a short
in less than a week. Again, it's not like we're having 2 weeks in between games. It's a week, and it's
a problem. And I think that comes down to the players. And I to me, this feels like Miami wins this thing and wins it pretty solidly.
Interestingly, this game has the higher over-under by a lot. 52.5 is the over-under. So that's a pretty decent amount of points you would expect both ways. For a Miami team that they haven't scored a ton. They got the pick 6. It's not like this is one of the most explosive offenses in the country either.
Feels like an under to me.
Could be. I think in this game, it ultimately comes down to what I said. Can Miami win the line of scrimmage? Can they dominate the line of scrimmage potentially? Or can Ole Miss neutralize that enough to get your explosive plays? Can Trinidad Chambliss get outside the pocket and make some plays, or is Miami going to get them down? Can they tempo at all to kind of try to neutralize that? I think the kicking could be a very big thing here. And then a couple of turnovers in a game like this can always go. Like I always say, football comes down to finishing drives and turnovers. Are you kicking field goals? Or are you getting touchdowns? And are you having a backbreaking turnover or two? Miami got a pick 6 against Ohio State. Ole Miss gave up a fumble 6 against Georgia and was able to overcome it. A play like that can completely change a game. I'm going to go with Miami wins and covers as well. The 3.5, I think it was. It's kind of wild to think, the Miami team that I think I picked to lose in the first round is the favorite in the semifinal against an SEC
Yeah, I
team.
mean, I think the coaching situation influences some of that, but I think Miami is more talented. They're a better team. I just don't trust them. Ole Miss can win this game, but Miami playing at its peak is as good as anybody in the country, and certainly as good as anybody left. We'll kind of see. I don't know that we know officially kind of what Indiana's ceiling is, but I think Miami can go toe-to-toe with them if they play at their peak. The question is, can you get Miami playing at your peak? Mario Cristobal in big games. We haven't really seen him in this level yet, and he hasn't made a ton of mistakes in game management. We saw some kind of iffy stuff from Pete Golding. Didn't love the way they handled the end of the first half, but I think some of that might influence this game. But to me, Miami clearly a better team.
Miami seems totally like focused in game. Like they're only worried about one thing here. They're not worried about 50 different things. I think that plays a role as well. Like Miami gets the win. Friday in the Chick-Fil-A Peach Bowl, number 1 Indiana, number 5 Oregon, 7:30 Eastern, ESPN. David will be there. Indiana, a 4-point favorite. And we've got a rematch here. David, we have had 5 rematches in the history of the college football playoff. Okay. What do you think the record is of the team that won the first game?
I'm going to say 1-4.
1-4. And that And that one was Ole Miss Tulane. You had the Georgia Alabama national championship game that flipped, went to Alabama the first time, Georgia the second time. You had Ohio State last year, Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Oregon the first time, Ohio State the second time. You had Alabama Oklahoma this year. Oklahoma won the first time, Alabama the second time, and Ole Miss Georgia, where Georgia won the first time, Ole Miss won the second time. It's very hard to beat a team 2 times in one season. How much of a factor do you think that is?
I think it's going to be a relatively large factor. The thing is, I trust these 2 coaching staffs from a game planning perspective way more than I trust the other side of the bracket. Yeah. Dan Lanning, I think if you polled 136 athletic directors, I don't know that any of them would rank Dan Lanning outside of their top 3 in their coaches. And if you polled those same people, I'm not sure Curt Cignetti would fall outside of the top 4 or 5. I think he'd be in most people's top 2. But there is, this is only sort of year 2 of doing this at the big top. Yeah. Before we get in the game, though, Chris, I will say this is I have never covered the Peach Bowl. This is actually
hold on. Before that. I will say on the rematch part of it, when you talk to coaches about it, it becomes a lot less about game plan. And it becomes a lot more just about your guys and guys making plays because they know what to expect. They've prepared for it already. They've gone through it already. You're not really going to hit anybody with any surprises. It really comes down more to just your guys more than your scheme, I think. And so that makes an interesting dynamic. But you were saying about the Peach Bowl?
So the New Year's Six, this game I had not covered, and then the Rose Bowl I have not covered. So I'll be crossing this one off. But Chick-fil-A, there'll be plenty of Chick-fil-A. Where does Chick-fil-A rank in your fast food chicken, Chris?
I don't do chicken that much. Like if I'm getting chicken,
got Popeyes, you got Zaxby's, you got Chick-fil-A.
I'm usually doing like a KFC if I just want to get some chicken. But there is a Popeyes near me too. There's a Chick-fil-A near me too, and the line is always out the door. I don't go there that much, partly because it's so crowded where I live, but it's good.
You know what we need? So, Chris, there's Peruvian chicken that's very popular in Charlotte. Viva chicken.
Okay.
It's delicious. It's a rotisserie chicken, but there's a lot of flavor to it. Anyway, I'll be eating a lot of Chick-fil-A.
What would happen if you got Chick-fil-A Uber Eats over to that place?
It's a good question. Well, you probably wouldn't need to because there's usually free Chick-fil-A in the press box, but so it would be
No, to the Peruvian place.
They'd probably be all right with it. They got some good
They would have
sauces
to be
over there.
insulted. They'd have to be insulted.
Real ones know Peruvian chicken, man. It's a thing in Charlotte. It's delicious. So we'll see. I'm excited about this game. Atlanta, great place to cover a college football game. They hosted the national championship last year. I will not be flying, so I don't have to deal with the debacle that was the post-game airport situation. You had to deal with that last year, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, but it actually ended up not being too, because it was like a snowstorm the day after.
Yeah.
I stayed an extra day, so it wasn't as bad for me. But I don't like that stadium, by the way.
Why not? What's wrong with it?
I like AT&T Stadium way more. I don't like the lighting in there. I've been like
it's a little darker. It's fair.
Press conference stuff is not great. I remember I covered Georgia, Oregon there, and like Dan Lanning's press conference was like behind a curtain, like in folding chairs. It was kind of wild for a brand new NFL stadium. I don't know what's up with that, but as for this game, so they did already play once, and I went back and I watched a bunch of highlights and I wrote down a bunch of notes from it. Here's what jumped out to me about that game. So Indiana won 30-20. They led 10-7 at halftime. They were up 20-13 in the second half. Then Oregon gets a pick six, but Indiana immediately responds with a 75-yard touchdown drive, and then a field goal to win. Indiana was held to just 3 yards per carry in that game, and they were only sacked one time. They could not run the ball well. Oregon was sacked 6 times by 5 different Indiana players. They were really getting after Dante Moore. Stephen Daly, who's not playing for Indiana, wasn't one of those people. So that's not an adjustment. And Oregon was able to run the ball in this game when they weren't getting sacked. Davison had 7.4 yards per carry. Whittington was at 5.4, but they were down a lot and they had to pass more. And Dante Moore like played okay, but he threw 2 interceptions, both in the fourth quarter as he was trying to make a comeback. Oregon also missed a field goal in that game. It's a big in a 10-point game. They went 3 for 4 on fourth down. And notably, DeCorian Moore and Gary Bryant Jr. played in that game, and they both had 4 catches. And we don't know, as of recording, what exactly their health is. They played a little bit.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say, coming off of a short week, they'll probably play, but, what are they at? You watch DeCorian Moore, he didn't do a ton in that game, but he didn't look right.
So, first thing I'm looking for in this game is, again, line of scrimmage, which I know is not surprising in football, but Oregon is the number 11 rushing offense in the country. They were the number 2 rushing offense going into the Texas Tech game. That's how poorly it went there. Can they get it going against an Indiana rush defense that is ranked number 7? And as I mentioned, Indiana sacked Dante Moore 6 times. And Dante Moore, he played pretty well considering the situations he was in, because he was under a lot of pressure from Texas Tech there. As ugly as that final score was and that game was to watch at times, Texas Tech's defense got after it.
Yeah, the defensive line especially. They lived up to the hype.
So, can Indiana do that? Do you think that's possible?
Well, they don't have as many dynamic individual talents, but it's like you said, and we talked about this coming off of the Alabama game. Indiana seems to be greater than the sum of its parts, which I think is a humongous testament to Kurt Cignetti. I think there's a lot of that discipline there. And you watch them, especially on defense, there's not a lot of guys that pop for Indiana, but you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy is a beast. But people are where they're supposed to be. I don't think we keep track. Well, I don't think PFF keeps track of bust percentages or missed assignments on defense because you don't know the assignment. But if there were, I feel confident Indiana would be in the top 2% of missed assignments. It just doesn't seem like it happens a lot for them. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of breathing room for teams. And when there's good teams, it looks tough. And then when it's bad teams, it looks hopeless against Indiana. They just crush you. So Indiana's certainly dynamic, but when you're playing a defense where guys are constantly where they're supposed to be, that means you've got to execute. That means your margin of error is pretty small. When you make a mistake, they're going to make you pay for it, and you can't count on them making a mistake. You've got to just beat people when you're one-on-ones. And Oregon, man for man, pound for pound, certainly has better players than Indiana. But again, this goes back to what we were talking about, where the talent issue. You can talk about the team talent composite. I think with Indiana, it's kind of almost pointless because it just doesn't add up to what I see on the screen.
Indiana has a lot of NFL guys. Like there are a lot of NFL dudes on this team. So whatever the high school rating doesn't matter at this point. And that's one of the other factors I had in this game toward the end, which is just like, which quarterback is better? Like both of these guys are probably going to be the top 2 quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft this spring, if they both declare. It's expected Mendoza will. Dante Moore, it doesn't seem sure yet. But both of these guys are potential top 5 picks. And sometimes it just comes down to which of your NFL dudes is going to make the most plays. And you could see this going 2 different ways. Like Mendoza never puts up enormous numbers because he's often getting benched before, when the game gets out of hand. But he went 14 for 16 against Alabama. He had more touchdowns than he did interceptions. So incompletions, I'm sorry. And so like both these guys might be under some pressure a bit. Which one's just going to make more plays? Like as simple as that is. Sometimes it just comes, like I said, both of these quarterbacks have prepared for these defenses before. They've gone up against these defenses before. You're not going to surprise them with all that much. Both of them are too good and too smart for that. Who's just going to make the better plays? And sometimes that's often what football comes down to. Of these 2 quarterbacks, I mean, maybe this is too obvious, but like of these 2 quarterbacks, which one would you rather have?
I mean, I think Dante Moore is dynamic, but I think the processing, the accuracy, and just like the sort of intangible quality of rising tide lifts all boats, I'd probably point to Mendoza. But Dante Moore probably has a higher ceiling. Like you look at his physical tools and you're like, he definitely jumps off the tape a little bit more than Mendoza does. It's like, he's got a big arm. Obviously Mendoza's a big kid, but like, I think Moore could be more special. But in terms of play-to-play execution, what you need, Mendoza, I think, the better guy right now.
Yeah, and I looked up. It doesn't look. Yeah, Cal. They're in different conferences. He didn't play Oregon, I don't think. When he
and he's played a ton of football, which I think can pay off in these games, because at the end of the day, like it's a huge stage. This is the biggest game either one of these guys have played in by a pretty wide margin. But Mendoza, can you reduce every single snap to? I just need to do one progression at a time, one throw at a time, simplify those things, make the game smaller than it is. And Mendoza, because he might be 60% robot, I kind of like his ability to do that. And I don't know, has anybody ever seen Dante Moore in the weekend in the same room?
Correction. Mendoza did play against Oregon 2 years ago at Cal.
Okay.
Oregon won 63-19. Mendoza was 18 for 34. Through a pick.
Wrap it up. I don't think what's the point of him playing this game then?
So, but I say that to say he is very familiar with this Oregon defense and with Tosh Lupoy and what they're going to throw at him. So I think that's something that can only really help you. And to that point, another thing I'm watching for here, turnovers. Indiana number 1 in turnover margin. Dante Moore, 3 interceptions in the last 2 games. And he had 2 the last time he played Indiana. It's been a problem a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
And then, hold on. And then 3rd and 4th downs. Like Indiana number 1 in the country on 3rd downs, but they were only 5 for 14 against Oregon last time. Oregon was 3 for 14 on 3rd down the last time these 2 teams played, but they went 3 for 4 on 4th down. And as we saw against Texas Tech when they went for 4th down a million times, it went 4 for 8. Like this is a game with an over-under 46.5. They don't think that the Vegas doesn't think this is going to be high scoring. And do you think this is a situation with the way last week went? Does Dan Lanning take field goals, or does he go for 4th downs on a whim if the yardage is good?
I think he believes in what he's doing. I think you're not going to see him flinch in the strategy at all. A lot of that's situational, but if it's 4th and 3 at the 30 again, I think you're going to see him go for it.
Yeah. Anything else I have here? I think that's about
so. Do we want to get to the picks here?
Yeah, what's your pick? So Indiana 4-point favorite.
So listen, I do believe in Dan Lanning. I don't blame. What's the list of teams that have come after him? I mean, Alabama, most notably.
Nobody's getting Dan Lanning, by the way, because not only does he has a $20 million buyout just to leave, but he's also got like a separate like Nike kind of thing that
Yeah,
he ain't leaving.
it's a good gig. It doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. By
the way, you want to know part of the reason he has such a good contract and why he has such a high buyout to leave? Because you know who was the coach at Oregon before him?
Mario Cristobal.
It was Mario Cristobal. He's in the other semifinal. So like
Yep.
that would be an interesting if we have an Oregon Miami national championship game. That'd be a little spicy little
well, we got
thing there
Chris.
too.
We should have somebody ranking the best championship game possibilities. There might be somebody at the Athletic doing that for early this week.
I don't know what are your top 3. Well, we'll do that after the picks. What's your pick?
We'll talk about it. So, all that to say, I am a big Dan Lanning fan. I believe in what he does. I think the program building, the floor of that program is incredibly high. That said, Dan Lanning's track record in big games, not good. Not good at all. The Rose Bowl last year looms. Both of those Washington games in 2023, when he had the better team, looms for me. When have we seen him kind of prove himself as an underdog in this stage, or when it's kind of a coin flip game? We haven't really seen a ton of that.
Beat Ohio State last year, but that was at home. Beat Penn State, Big Ten championship, but you're the better team.
Yes, exactly. They're not the better team here. And Indiana, listen, I was surprised the line was this low. Oregon, obviously, it seems like maybe it's an overreaction to what we saw from the last game, which is kind of how Vegas gets people.
Could it be the rematch? Could it be the rematch thing, though?
Look at the totality of the season. Indiana is way more than 4 points better than Oregon. I think Indiana wins this game. I think they cover easily. I think they win by 2 scores. And I think they prove that they're the best team in the country right now. And I think we have another sort of interesting conversation about Dan Lanning in big games.
I'm going to go Indiana 2 and Indiana cover as well. Like I've been a believer in this team for a long time, and I'm trying not to just like think we just saw what they did against Alabama. Therefore, this is what Indiana is going to do to everybody, because Oregon's better than Alabama.
Yeah, way better. They're not going to win this game by 30 points, but Oregon, one, I think, introduced a lot of questions about Texas Tech. And 2, because Texas Tech, for all that we've said about them, relatively untested as well. BYU, the only test that they faced, and BYU didn't necessarily acquit themselves super well in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And so you start looking at that, and I know the transitive property is many things and imperfect, but I think when you get this late in the season, you try to look at totality and common opponents, it does tell you a little bit. And so I think for me, Chris, we've been kind of looking side-eye at Oregon all year. It's like you watch them, and they pass the eye test. They got athletes. They've been solid all season. But you look at kind of the results that they put on tape, the results they put on paper. It's not – I mean, it's certainly not as impressive. I just think Indiana wins this thing and wins it solidly.
Both of them, by the way, narrow escapes at Iowa this season as well. Again, it's going to come down to, like, I look at the line of scrimmage. Can Oregon run the ball? If they can, it opens up a lot. They were able to run the ball the first time around, and you're going to need that because you can't have them pinning their ears coming after Dante Moore.
Yeah.
And can Indiana run the ball? Indiana could not run the ball against Oregon the last time around. Is there a key turnover or two that swings the game? We saw a lot. There were 3 turnovers the last time these two teams played. Those 3rd and 4th downs. Is Oregon going to be super aggressive again? Do they turn the ball over on downs, or are they extending drives and keeping Indiana off the field? And then quarterbacks. Like, these are 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country, maybe the 2 best. Who plays better? That's what it comes down to. I'm gonna go Indiana. I think the Indiana football Hoosiers play for the national championship, which would be wild. Now, you mentioned you have a upcoming list of storylines. What were the top 2 or 3?
So my number 1, as we kind of talked a little bit about in the coming off of the quarters, is Indiana-Ole Miss. Just for the casual fan, I mean, you can't come up with a more compelling story for both sides of that. But my number two,
individually, not like against each other, but individually,
yes,
they
but
have the two
individually,
most interesting teams.
Sort of our coach abandoned us and we won it anyway. And we are the worst program in college football, and we literally are the best team in college football. Like, both of those are Disney movies. Like, they just are. So that was my number one. But my number two was Oregon versus Miami. I think the coaching matchup is interesting. Obviously, the Cristobal and Dan Lanning thing is interesting. But I think the second most interesting
wait. Hold on. Real quick, though. Remember, Cristobal is the one who brought Oregon back. Because they had fallen off under Mark Helfrich.
It was bad.
They went like 4-8, I think.
There was a 4-8 mixed in there. If I'm
they
not
hired
mistaken.
Cristobal. I think he was coming straight from Alabama as an assistant, if I have that right. And he built that program back up to what it was in a good spot. So when he left and Dan Lanning took over, there were good players there. And Dan Lanning's done a great job recruiting more good players. But
yeah. But my number two, and we talk about Oregon, Miami. The coaching matchup is one thing, but you know what we are sort of glossing over is if you were ranking the most aggressive early adopters in the NIL era, Oregon and Miami would be in the top 5. It's probably those two, Texas
Ole Miss.
A&M,
I mean,
Tennessee, and Ole Miss.
Three of them.
And
like
Ole Miss
3
is
of
in
them.
there as well.
All of these teams. Yeah.
Which is interesting as we sort of, the Blue Bloods were paying, but a lot of them felt like they could get a discount. We saw that a lot at Alabama, certainly not so much at Ohio State of late, but definitely Alabama early on, Georgia a little bit. They felt like they could get guys at a discount because they're putting guys in the NFL. And a lot of these schools, the Oregons, the Ole Misses, the Miamis, were overpaying because they needed to get guys. And here they are. So I think to me, that's, but beyond the coaching matchup, the sort of vindication of the NIL early adopters is super interesting to me.
Yeah,
so.
It is. Another national championship game actually going on real quick. We had some requests from listeners to talk about it, so we'll talk about it here briefly. The FCS national championship game on Monday night on ESPN. Number 2, Montana State against Illinois State. This game's at Vanderbilt Stadium because they moved it because the stadium in Frisco, Texas is under renovation. Montana State, 10.5-point favorite. They are a program that lost in last year's national championship game. They lost in the final in 2021 as well. They were in the semis in 2019, 2022. They haven't won it since 1984, but they've been very close for a while. And they go up against an Illinois State team that's the first one ever to win 4 road games on the path here. They were 8-4 in the regular season, but they upset North Dakota State.
That was a wild game. That North Dakota State upset, the last 5 minutes of that were crazy.
A game in which Illinois State threw 5 interceptions, by the way, and still came back to win that game. Tommy Rittenhouse, the quarterback at Illinois State there. But I also got Montana State quarterback Justin Lamson, former Stanford transfer, who's been really good second half of the season. Overwhelming favorite? Does Montana State get it done? I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, I think so. Illinois State, great story, but it feels like they're sort of living on borrowed time. And man, cracking through at the top of the FCS level seems like a tough deal. And if it's not too like elite teams, it seems like the championship game tends to humble some of these Cinderellas, which do get there from time to time. But I think we see a Montana State flex in a win.
We do have one of the great mustaches in college football, an Illinois State coach, Brock Spack. So if you're watching that game Monday night, keep an eye on that. All right. Now we're going to go into the news segment, and to do that, we go into the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage.
And we'll talk about the first round buys here first. This is now every year people have to complain about something about the playoff, and everybody has the perfect fix, even though there is no perfect fix. But buy teams with a buy are now 1-7. The one win was Indiana this year. Now, last year, it was Boise State got a bye, Arizona State got a bye. Is a little bit different. Some people say this is a problem. It needs to change. Too much time off. Our colleague Ralph Russo wrote a story about it on The Athletic. I don't really buy that. I don't think the bye is really much of a problem. The betting favorite in this game, well, hold on. The betting favorite in this game is 5-3 overall. And if you take the opening line, it's 6-2. those 3 losses are Ohio State this year, Georgia this year, and Georgia last year. Last year, Notre Dame opened as a favorite. It flipped to Georgia. Notre Dame won the game. Like we're not having massive upsets in the semifinal other than Miami. You know, I think the better team is typically winning these games, which is how it should be. I don't think this is much of a problem.
No, and I think you look at the context of all of this, couple things. One, small sample size. We're talking about 8 games.
Yeah.
But 2 of those losses are Boise State and SMU.
Not SMU.
No,
Arizona State.
Sorry, excuse me. Boise State and Arizona State. Excuse me. And Arizona State was like a 14-point dog.
They took Texas to overtime. Like Arizona State nearly won that game.
Boise, they lost solidly, but they were competitive in that mix. The only game that was really kind of like are they rusty was the Oregon-Ohio State game, but it was also like an Ohio State like warpath game where certainly they were undervalued at the bottom side of that bracket. But that's the only one where it was like, this is kind of a result that makes you look at it a little bit sideways. But the rest of the games have all kind of made sense. And you mentioned that Georgia-Notre Dame game. Well, people forget Georgia didn't have their starting quarterback. It was Gunnar Stockton's first start ever in that game.
Yep.
And he was coming off an SEC championship when they didn't let him do anything against Texas. They were just like snapping it to him and being like, hey, can you go run for 3 yards? So I'm with you. I think it's overstated. And, if there's one thing we need to do with the playoff, it's tweak it because we don't do that enough.
No, just keep just one more change, guys. Just one more change, and it'll be
perfect.
There'll be no problems. Is the solution you go to 16 and nobody gets a bye? I'd love that, but there's no room on the calendar to do that. You're already playing 3 games on Saturday, 1 on Friday. Either you're putting games on campus on Thursdays of finals week, or you're overlapping games on Saturday and playing multiple games. One of the 16-team models, by the way, is 4 teams play Army-Navy week. They play themselves into a normal 12-team playoff, which means 4 teams are getting a bye and 4 more are getting a double bye. Like that's one of the 16-team models. So that doesn't fix that either. I don't think it's a problem. I don't. The only thing I would say is you could up the incentive of getting the bye, which is you're getting that game at home. And that's what we're seeing play out with the NFL right now, where only one team gets the bye. The number 1 seed gets the bye. There's an incentive there. But also, if you win your division, you get a home game. And, we have an 8-9 Carolina Panthers team won the NFC South. They're getting not only an automatic bid to the playoff, they're getting a home game. And so where's all the experts saying, oh, why are we letting these charity cases in? Why are we letting that 8 and 9 team into the playoff? It's because the regular season matters. And by doing that, by giving the playoff spot and the home field to the division winner, it makes your division games mean more. It makes your interdivision games count more. It adds stakes to the regular season. So suddenly all these NFC South teams had more to play for late in the year. This idea that the college football playoffs should just let the best teams in. Nobody does that. Like, that's not how the NFL playoffs really work either. The point of playoffs is to find ways to elevate the regular season. So it's not the only thing that matters. So I made a joke about this on Twitter, and NFL fans who don't follow me found it and started thinking I was being serious. No, I'm glad that the 8-9 Carolina Panthers get a home game. And by the way, teams that are sub 500 in the playoffs are, I believe, 6-17 all time, and none of them have advanced past the divisional round. So this is sorting itself out anyway. Just like the group of 5 question, yes, a group of 5 team should have a playoff. Yes, an NFL team that wins this division should be in the playoffs and get a home field. You have to do these things to incentivize it. I don't think the bye college football playoff is a big deal, unless you were to say, by getting a bye, you're getting a home game. That would make the bye more valuable. I think the bye itself, I don't think the bye is a disadvantage. I also don't think it's much of an advantage, I think. And that's really kind of the larger issue is, should you make the bye even more valuable, which would be putting it on a home campus stadium, which is probably not going to happen. But
well, don't let Bryce Young get hot. Maybe I got to cover that playoff game. We'll see.
So, David, portal, a couple of big portal news this weekend, but you wanted to start off, you wanted to talk about how this is a very pressure-packed portal window.
Yeah, I think people are not recognizing this a little bit. So we went to one portal window, and a lot of the conversation around this was about player movement and not wanting to sign guys in December and then go through spring and end up back at the negotiating table in April. But I talked to a lot of coaches, and I ran an on-the-record quote from Tulsa coach Trey Lamb talking about their portal house in the Athletic last week. But I've heard this from a lot of coaches that there's more pressure on these 15 days because they're going to shape your season than we've maybe ever seen in roster construction in the history of college football. Because you can talk about the player movement, but what was also happening was after that December portal, they had some opportunities to fix it. You figured out, oh, we missed on these guys. These guys can't cut it, and thus they're going to get cut, and then we're going to try to portal some guys in the spring. You know, Deion Sanders, his first year at Colorado, they figured out pretty quickly in spring football that they had missed on some guys, and you saw a few guys leave after spring because that was made clear to them. You can't do that now, you know, and right now, what you get in these next 15 days, you got to make it work. And so I think what you're going to see is that the programs with the best evals and the best scouting and the best sort of character assessments in this short speed dating window are going to thrive. You know, the rules are probably going to change. We'll see kind of what college football comes into.
Yeah.
But as it states now, there's a ton of pressure on these 2 weeks. So you got to get it right because there's no going back. And you've got to hit on the guys that you hit. And the money that you spend has got to be spent well, or else you're going to be paying for it in the fall. So,
and a reminder, this is what the coaches wanted. You and I were there in Charlotte last year when about 60 or so FBS head coaches came in to vote on the AFCA's recommendation. Everybody wanted one portal window and not two. Do you want it spring or do you want it in January? Unanimously, they voted for January. The only ones who were really wanted spring were a lot of schools in the Big Ten for a couple of reasons. And like Kirby Smart was kind of like, I'd rather do it because I'm usually in the playoff by then, but I understand why not. And so, but the coaches wanted it January because they want their full team in spring practice. They want to go through spring knowing they've got all their guys, not they're going to go through spring and then lose guys. So for all the complaining coaches are having about various calendar things, just remember that most of it is what they wanted. They wanted this portal. They wanted early signing period. They wanted spring enrollees back in the day. So for all the complaining that they do, for all the complaining Nick Saban does on College Game Day, we have to change the calendar. We have to do this. Well, this is what you guys wanted. Like, how about you don't have your freshmen enroll in spring, or maybe you only have one portal after spring. Like maybe we move signing day back to January or February. But no, you wanted guys in early because you wanted them to go through spring ball. So like this is what you wanted. So a number of big portal moves have been made. So let's talk about those briefly here. First one, Drew Mestemaker, North Texas quarterback, goes to Oklahoma State. He ends up following his coach, Eric Morris, there. I think it's a great move. Like Mestemaker was a walk-on at North Texas. Eric Morris turned him into the leading passer in the country. You both and I think he might be the best quarterback in the portal that was available. Big guy, big arm. Maybe we'll grade these, but I'll grade this like A+. Like considering Oklahoma State, like getting to the Big 12, A+.
Yes, and it would help him if Wyatt Young follows. Wyatt Young might be coming along as well.
His receiver.
His receiver. Oklahoma State's going to be kind of a wild card next year because this program has been kind of dead and juiceless for several years. Mike Gundy didn't really want to embrace the portal. Mike Gundy was never going to pay $3 million for a quarterback, and Eric Morris is going to do that. And I think obviously he has a lot of trust and a lot of understanding with how Drew Mestemaker's mind works, and they've been through a lot together. And so I think if you're Drew Mestemaker, this makes all the sense in the world as a place to move up and still be able to thrive and be with a coaching staff and a head coach that obviously trusts you, believes in you, and that you know how each other works. So if you're going to make a big move, following your head coach makes a ton of sense. So I'll go A+ for both sides here. I don't know. We'll see kind of what Oklahoma State's roster looks like by the end of this, because the end of the Mike Gundy era had really drained this Cowboys roster that was consistently one of the best, and Mike Gundy had been recruiting above Oklahoma State's head for a long time.
Yeah,
but wasn't up for embracing some of the changes that came to college football.
The other thing I like, by the way, if you're a estimate maker, you're not going up against SEC or like Big 10 defenses. You're going up against Big 12 defenses, and you can make some moves, I think, against those. His worst games were against Tulane in USF. Like, he didn't play great in the biggest games, but now you're not going against competition that might overwhelm you. At Penn State, Rocco Becht, the Iowa State quarterback, also following his head coach, Matt Campbell, to there. His offense coordinator, Tyler Mauser, went there as well. Made sense from the very beginning. I think we would have seen this coming. I'll give this, like, I'm not the biggest Rocco Becht guy.
Yeah.
But I'll give this a B plus. I think it's a good, solid guy. You know what you're getting.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think there's, again, a level of trust. And I think when you're trying to install a culture and sort of change and build your program into what you want it to look like, if you could bring your quarterback over, certainly you'd want other players to try and establish that as well. But the quarterback, is kind of the head of the snake, and that's a good place to start. Just kind of set the tone for like, hey, here's how we do things inside this program. I think it can help ease some of that transition, because it's going to be a little bit of a difficult transition going from Iowa State to Penn State. That's not to say that they're not going to have success, but it's just, you're going to a bigger program and you're going to a place where there's a lot more expectation, and that's going to come with some difficulties. So
Indiana's got two here. Josh Hoover, the quarterback from TCU, as well as Nick Marsh, the receiver from Michigan State. Nick Marsh crossing the old brass spittoon rivalry line to go to from hated rival Michigan State to Indiana. Like, if you're a quarterback, why would you not want to go to Indiana at this point? You saw what they did with Curtis Rourke. You see what they did with Fernando Mendoza. Mike Shanahan, the OC, is still there. Like, it's all good. Now you got a great quarterback receiver combo right there. I mean, putting them together makes me like it a lot more. Josh Hoover, some interceptions at times, but I also didn't think he was playing in a great offense. I'll give
the Kendall Browse piece of it is kind of complicated here.
Yeah, I'll give this one an A- on Hoover, an A on Nick Marsh, but with room for that to become an A+.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I love Hoover's tools. The production wasn't maybe what you'd want. He would thrive with Eric McAllister in some moments this year, and when Eric McAllister wasn't healthy, he didn't have his best days. But I wasn't a gigantic fan of kind of what Kendall Browse has been doing at TCU there. So coming in there, I think for him makes a ton of sense to try and upgrade. Indiana, I think he's probably not as talented as Fernando Mendoza, but his ceiling is probably, well, I mean, he won the Heisman, so I don't know if his ceiling is quite to that. I don't know if it's quite to that level. I just think, like, it's hard. Like, assessing Fernando Mendoza is tough, because it's like,
who would
he
have
is
thought
what he is. He was deserving of the Heisman, but it's not like I watch him and I'm like, this is a generational talent at quarterback. He's like a good quarterback.
He's about to be like a top 3 pick. So
of course, Chris, we've never seen a top 3 pick in the NFL.
I'm just saying, like, he is doing very well, but we also didn't think when he went there that was like the clear home run best move of the portal, right?
It's true.
There was Carson Beck. There was Darian Mensa making all this big money. Mendoza happened, and it happened so quickly. Like, we didn't really like think about it that much. So we'll see. Arizona State gets Cutter Boley, quarterback from Kentucky, who played pretty well in the second half of the year when he kind of was take over. I think he was a freshman, a redshirt freshman. I don't remember if he was a true freshman or redshirt, but played pretty well. And I think, again, you're going to a Big 12 school. Kenny Dillingham, they've done a good job there with quarterbacks. So far, the OC Marcus Arroyo's set to be there as well. So I think this is a solid, like, B type of move, but he's a young guy, and, like, I think the upside is there. Obviously, losing Sam Leavitt and that whole thing is a bit weird. Maybe a trade, like Leavitt may end up at Kentucky possibly, but I like Arizona State getting Cutter Boley here. You had to have somebody after losing Leavitt, and I think you feel pretty good.
Yeah, Kentucky's people like Cutter Boley. It seems unclear exactly how much money Arizona State has. It's never good when your coach is constantly in public, like, campaigning, like, "Hey, we need you to help. We need you. We need you. We need you." So that tells me that certainly they're not happy with where they're at. I would argue that nobody's happy. But
Yeah, we know
considering the circumstances, I think that's a guy that can be productive for you. So I would go like a B-, B+, something like that.
Sure. Alonzo Barnett from James Madison to UCF. And you like Barnett and what he can do. I think him and a Scott Frost offense could be interesting. Yeah. He really shined at times. He was coming off the injury last year. It took him a little bit to get going, but as someone who watched him play and wrote about him, what do you think? What would you grade that move?
I mean, so if you're Alonzo Barnett, not necessarily a toolsy guy. So like the big time schools are probably not throwing, $3 and $4 million at you, but certainly a guy that's capable of playing at a higher level. I think obviously the Big 12, going to a mid-level Big 12 program makes a lot of sense there. I think the ceiling there is pretty high. He can make some plays. I like his ability. I like his mindset. Tough player, will run people over. But undersized, maybe not huge arm strength, but productive and a really good player. And I like this pick. I like this move for UCF. So,
Kenny Minchie back up at Notre Dame, going to Nebraska. We haven't really seen a ton of him, so it's hard to really say. But it sounded like Nebraska people were pretty darn high on him. He'll come in after Dylan Raiola is on his way out, so don't really need to grade that one. But interesting, notable one there. And then this
haven't heard a lot of buzz of where Raiola's going. Where do we feel this one's headed?
Well, maybe next week or something we can do more of a bigger portal look. There's just a lot of movement and it's changing by the day. So I've been trying not to do too much on this show so it doesn't become outdated. But we'll dig deeper into some of these in the coaching carousel as well. And then last one, not official, but it sounds like Austin Simmons is going to go to Missouri. The starter at Ole Miss at the beginning of the year became the backup when he got hurt. Interesting move, I think, for a couple reasons. One, we don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to get another year. He's applying for one. So if he wasn't, maybe Austin Simmons would have made sense. But I like the upside here. We just never really got to see a ton of it because he got hurt. But David, as a Missouri grad, what do you if that happens?
I mean, he's going to bring with him a win over Georgia. I think Missouri seemed to really like Matt Zollers, but you watch the bowl game, you watch kind of what you saw from him late in the season. You had to kind of be like, do we want to bet our entire season on him? And it seems like the answer is no there. And so maybe he needs another year. We'll see what Austin Simmons can do. I liked Austin Simmons coming into the year. I took him in our staff Heisman draft, Chris, mostly because Lane Kiffin's history with quarterbacks is quite good. And he did have a top 10 Heisman
it was again. It was again
this
year.
It wasn't Austin Simmons. But I do think if Austin Simmons stays healthy, like the idea that Austin Simmons could finish in the top 10 in the Heisman is not the craziest thing. But he is left-handed, so imagine how good he'd be if he threw with his right hand, Chris. So
left-handed is the way. Left-handed's the way to go. Although I know you hate it in the video game.
Absolutely do.
All right, so we'll have more portal stuff. We'll try to do maybe a bigger portal show next week. Once as
I think
moves,
Chris,
as these
you
moves
tell
come
me.
in.
I was talking with my editor about this, and I think I feel the same way that a lot of people do, and this is the same way of like Georgia and Alabama recruiting. If everyone's a 5-star, then no one's a 5-star, and it doesn't get that compelling. Outside of the quarterbacks, like I think a lot of fans feel this way, and like maybe they'll track their team. Obviously you want to know what's happening to your team, but if everyone's in the portal, then no one's in the portal, and it kind of feels like wake me up when the movement has stopped and just tell me where everybody ended up, because they're like, he's going on a visit here, he's going on a visit here. Oh, this guy's leaving. The first year, I want to say 2022, the first year of the portal day in December was like shocking. I don't think people really recognized like how many big names were going to be leaving when you didn't see it coming. But now I think there's a desensitization to it. And it's kind of just like, all right, well, this is just kind of what the sport is. We don't like it. But just tell me when this is over. So I thought the quarterback movement, it's hard to get real fired up about guys going in the portal or signing guys out of the portal.
Well, it's yes and no. This year's quarterback class is a lot bigger than last year.
Way better and bigger.
And so that was a little bit different this year. But we have some great stuff on The Athletic. Our colleagues Sam Kahn, Manny Navarro, Antonio Morales, Grace Rayner, they've ranked the top 5 non-quarterbacks at every position. They've ranked the top 25 quarterbacks that are available. That will be continuing to update. So please check their stuff out at The Athletic. to keep up with it. But yeah, like I don't track visits because the visit doesn't mean anything to me. Like give me a couple of days when a guy makes a decision. But it's a weird spot for just like kind of us as national writers where it's like, if you're not in the playoff right now, you're mostly focused on your team and what your team is doing from a roster standpoint. So that's where it becomes for our show, like how we kind of dive into that is a little bit difficult. So we try to, as of right now, we're focusing on when the moves happen, when a guy leaves and when a guy picks a place and what that means for both of those schools, and try to keep it, I think, as interesting to as many people as possible is what we want to do. All right, let's get to a mailbag question here. We'll jump into the mailbag.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Question from Drew Wilson. I have one question and one rant stemming from the CFP and New Year's Eve games. Question: in your experience, is it unusual for marching bands to not march during poor weather? It was super rainy in Pasadena, and my heart goes out to the Indiana and Alabama marching bands for not being able to perform on the field during the Rose Bowl. I'd also like to know who makes that call to keep the bands in the stands, and if the motivation for sitting it out was to protect the field, protect the band, or both. To the other part later. But as for that question, the answer was the field. That they you could see it in the game, all the squeegeeing. They don't want anybody to really. It's a real grass field, so they don't want anybody to step on it. Dig up a divot or all kinds of stuff. They kept as many people off the field as they
were
could.
keeping media off the field, I believe, pregame.
Yeah. And so that was just to protect the field. Who makes that call is, I imagine, the stadium field person. I don't know.
Well, probably the bowl. The bowl people are probably talking to their to their turf management people. And the turf management people probably give them a recommendation, and the bowl people probably take it or leave it. And in this case, they took it, obviously.
Yeah,
I did think about them. I did feel bad. But did you see? It seemed like a lot of the Indiana band. I don't know about the Alabama band. It did seem like a lot of the Indiana band was on the field post game, just kind of chilling.
Yeah, and playing some stuff, got to do some stuff post game. So at least that was there. But that is generally the reason for it. How often does it happen? I haven't been to that many games in the rain to really like have a definitive answer. But specifically for the Rose Bowl, that was the call, and it was the right call because the field ended up being a great spot for the game. And then the rant here from Drew. It amazes me how many people still mispronounce Kirk Ferentz's name. The guy has been Iowa's head coach for 27 years. He's the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten. But you still get broadcasters and podcasters and journalists who call him Kirk Ferentz. Just remember, Ferentz rhymes with parents. Also, nice win by Iowa on New Year's Eve.
I don't know any other way to say Ferentz. I've heard it mispronounced, but this is a Ball Knowers podcast, so I've only heard Ferentz. I mean,
I'm trying like Ferentz.
That's not one that I struggle with.
Is it Ferentz? People have said
Ferentz. You hear from time to time. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe.
But every time I hear it, it grates on me. I only know Ferentz. But it was like people couldn't spell Chris Peterson's name for a super long.
Yeah, because it ended with EN, not ON.
Yeah.
I think Gary Anderson was the same way. That coach as well. Got a question here from Nathan McCants, but it's about the UAB coaching search. I'm going to save this one for when we do a coaching carousel look back pod.
Mm-hmm.
So Nathan, we got your question.
I'll be writing about the coaching carousel. Also, I have a piece I'm working on about the kind of lessons from this. Yes, lessons from this carousel. I've talked to some agents, some ADs about it. Keep an eye on.
I thought I was going to do that. So, all right. Great communication we have going on. It's all good. All right. We're going to end this show the way we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
Now I'm going to go with former Oregon quarterback Joey Harrington. When you think of like this modern era of Oregon football, the logo changed, the jerseys, the money, it started with Joey Harrington right there in like 2001. The big Heisman campaign in New Year's Eve.
Times Square.
Really good season. Probably should have played for the national championship instead of Nebraska against Miami that year. Harrington was up for the Heisman, I think, that year too. He would go on to play for my Detroit Lions and have a remarkably unremarkable run, which I don't think was really his fault.
Chris, you forgot the most important. You forgot the most important resume bullet for him. college football, I think 04 cover boy.
No, 02. I think it was 02 or 02
No,
or 01.
02 was Chris Wenke. I think he's 03.
Oh, you might be right. It would, because 03 was Carson, not Carson. Who's the quarter? Yeah, the quarterback.
It
from
was
USC.
03. I'm looking at it right now. NCAA football 03, and it's Joey Harrington pointing right at me. So yeah.
Okay, and the next one was
Jared Zabransky, maybe?
No. It was a USC quarterback who played for the Bengals. Is it a
Carson Palmer?
Carson Palmer. That's who it was. I was thinking
right.
different Carsons. Yeah, but I did talk to Joey Harrington once for a story about the video games history, and he told me a story about when for the release, getting invited down to, I think, Jamaica. I think it was Jamaica. They did a Madden NCAA football like party reveal or whatever, and he played Madden. Joey Harrington did with members from NSYNC, and I have the photo of it. It's like him and I think Lance Bass like playing or something like that. It's like an incredibly early 2000s type of thing. But Joey Harrington, super nice dude. I've talked to him a couple times for stories. Sorry it didn't work out with the Lions. I actually have an autographed Sports Illustrated cover that he signed. My grandpa took it to a Jaguar dealer that he was at signing one day. Turned out to not be all that valuable in the end. But Joey Harrington, good, solid Oregon quarterback.
Yeah. I'm going to remember Shea Patterson in this portal era of weird eligibility. Shea Patterson, sort of he was an okay player, but he is sort of patient zero for a lot of the eligibility stuff that we talk about now. Famously was one of the many people misled by Ole Miss folks coming off of the Hugh Freeze situation that it wasn't going to be an issue. And then all of a sudden it was an issue. And so he left. And because he felt like he was misled about the NCAA violations, felt like he deserved immediate eligibility, was not given it, got a lawyer. Shout out to fellow Arkansan, Tom Mars. Won a legal case and was able to get immediate eligibility at Michigan. And that's one of the many cases that was kind of the early start where people realized that you could sue and win eligibility. And a lot of people started doing it, and it helped sort of lead the way toward just the NCAA throwing up its hands and saying, great, everybody can have immediate eligibility because we can't do this waivers and all this different stuff. And so Shea Patterson, decent player, but extremely influential career because a big reason why college football is where it's at. That's not to say Shea Patterson deserves blame. I think the NCAA's rule book and inability to change that rule book with the times is the largest villain, if you want to call it that. But certainly Shea Patterson, a trailblazer in a lot of ways. So Shea Patterson, we remember you.
Was he like the number one overall recruit coming out of high school? He was at least the number one.
He was
quarterback,
up there.
I feel like.
He was a really good recruit. I mean, he was never, highest rated recruit by all four recruiting services in the class.
Yeah, so it didn't end up being like okay and fine, but didn't ultimately reach the end of it, the full hype. I remember seeing him around the spring, like the XFL, USFL type of thing for a minute there. Not sure how long he played. Yeah. We also got nominee from Verlin Suderman, who opens with a big story about Scott Tolzien and his family. Because Scott Tolzien was one of the guys I remembered, but this person knew Scott Tolzien and kids went to his kid's school or something like that. But gets to the point. I followed Northwestern football since I was a kid in high school myself during the epic 34-game losing streak in the early 80s. So you can imagine I was pretty excited about the 1995 Rose Bowl team. But my favorite player on that team is my nominee for Remember Some Guys, Darnell Autry. Almost 1,800 rushing yards that year, fourth in the Heisman. I don't remember this, but Wikipedia says he was a theater major who actually sued the NCAA to be able to act in a movie without losing his eligibility.
Okay.
So kind of a pioneer in that way. I suggest remembering Darnell Autry. I remember Autry.
I've never heard of this.
In that Northwestern run, like Pat Fitzgerald was on that team. Like the Indiana run currently, I think to a lot of Big Ten fans, is most comparable to that Northwestern run, to come out of nowhere, to go to the Rose Bowl, to have that type of season. But it feels like Indiana has taken that to a much higher level somehow.
Yeah.
Darnell Autry, I remember, great running back. Did you look this up at all?
It's not in his Wikipedia, it's just a sentence. So the NCAA rejected his claims, but eventually relented. I'm not familiar with this story. I'm gonna have to. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah, here's the story from the Chicago Tribune, 1996. I gotta disable my ad blocker. But it says the NCAA ruled Friday that he could accept a small part in an upcoming movie, ending several frustrating weeks where he couldn't. So yeah, there you go. Another pioneer.
All right.
So Joey Harrington, Shea Patterson, Darnell Autry, we remember you. We will be back on Thursday night after the Fiesta Bowl ends on YouTube and on Twitter. We will be reacting to the Ole Miss-Miami game. Should be a lot of fun. We're almost at the end here, man. We're almost at the end of the season. I have no idea who's going to win these games. I think any four of these teams could win these games, could win it all. All of them would be super interesting. It's fascinating. I'm excited to get to this. So, for David Ubben, I'm Chris Vannini. Thank you for listening and watching to Bunch Formation, and we will talk to you on Thursday night.
And even if you're in the semifinals, Chris, bring back the turnover chain.